Okay, we are going to talk about our Perashiyyot, and really both Perashiyyot. It's a double parasha, Behar, Behuqotai. Behuqotai, of course, is probably the most difficult parasha in the Torah, in that it has in it what we call the kilalot, the curses that Kadosh Baruch Hu predicted and told us would befall upon us if we didn't follow the will of God. And of course they did. These curses really speak of the whole future history of Am Yisrael, and all tragedies in that history are incorporated in Behuqotai if it's studied properly. Parashat Behar is something different. I'd like to connect both Perashiyyot with one powerful idea and one powerful mitzvah. And that is, of course, what the highlight seemingly of Parashat Behar is, the mitzvot, really, of Shemitah and Yovel, the sabbatical year and the Jubilee year. Parashat Behuqotai is very much connected to that idea, and we'll speak about how, and to me, the very profound idea that emanates from it. So, what is Mizvat Shemitah? And how many Mizvot are incorporated in it? Mizvat Shemitah is simply us refraining from work on the field in the 7th year in a certain count. There is a Mizvat Aseh, rest. There is a number of negative commandments. You can't work the field. You cannot work the trees. You can partake from the produce of the field, but you can't hoard it. You can't protect it. You can't harvest it during Shemitah year in its normal manner, which you would do it. Some say with the normal tools and methodology, or do it normally where you would keep your own property to yourself. So there was a number of different negative commandments. There's also a positive commandment. What is fascinating about this mitzvah of Shemitah is that it is reflected in the parasha of Behuqotai, the parasha of the curses and the predicted tragedies and tragic future of Am Yisrael. Not only is it mentioned, but the tragedies to befall upon us, the difficulties, the oppression, etc., are somehow attributed to the violation of this mitzvah of Shemitah and the lack of observance of this mitzvah of Shemitah, which is really astounding. But we're going to read this together. I'm going to show you on the screen in a moment, the couple of Pesukim I'm referring to in Behuqotai. One saying in Pirkei Avot that's related to this, and we'll accentuate the question and then try to explain. So here goes the pasuk, and we share with you. That's not it. 1 second. Just give me a second, I'll get it up for you. There we go. There it is. Okay. All right. You know, I'm not a whiz, but I make it somehow. So this is in Parashat Behuqotai, Book of Vayikra, chapter 26, Perek Kavav, Pesukim Lamed Dalet and Lamed He. Amidst the haunting predictions, the Torah says, I'm going to wipe you off your land completely. The land will be desolate. And Pasuk Lamed Dalet says, pointing to it, Az tiseh ha'aretz et shabetoteha, kol yemei hoshama, v'atem be'oris oibechem. Finally, the land will be appeased by its rest. all the days of desolation, while you're in the land of your enemies. As tishbat ha'aris, v'hirsat et shabetoteha. Then the land will finally rest, and it will accept its resting time. Lamedhe, kol yamei hoshama tishbot. All the days of desolation, the land will rest. Et asher lo shabeta b'shabetotechem b'shibtechem aleha. Because it didn't rest, and it wasn't able to rest during the sabbaticals or the appropriate resting times when you were on the land, which means, simply put, because when you were on the land, you didn't observe the resting time, namely the year of Shemitah. Let the land rest now by making it desolate and by exiling and throwing you out of the land. This is a very cold and direct attribution of the tragedies to befall Am Yisrael, or of the Mizvah of Shemitah to the tragedies to the befall Am Yisrael. We're blaming the lack of observance of Shemitah. It doesn't speak about, in Parashat Behuqotai, about Avodah Zarah, about murder, about adultery, about corruption, about thievery. It speaks about the lack of observance of Shemitah. It's quite astounding. It's not even a capital punishment-oriented mitzvah. The violation or the lack of observance, as I said, there's a positive, a mitzvah ta'aseh, some mitzvah lo ta'aseh. If you violate it, you'll get malkut, you'll get lashes. It is a do'oraita, serious do'oraita violation, but it's not up there with the severe list of violations that we would normally relate to. Why is this the reason for exile? Furthermore, look below. I quoted Pirkei Avot. It's obviously a mistake to say Perek He. In Pirkei Avot, Perek He has a lot of lists, and there is a few lists of consequences where certain punishments and terrible states come to us and the world because of certain avirot. Galut ba'al la'olam. What is exile befall upon the world and Am Yisrael? Al ovdei avodah zarah, idolatry, fine. Al gilui arayot behuqotai, meaning the three big ones, adultery or illicit relations and murder. And guess what? Val hashmatat ha'aris. And because of the lack of observance of Shemitah. There it is. In Torah shebichtav and Torah sheba'al peh, exile is attributed to the violations of the sabbatical year obligations. Why is this so severe? So we're going to come back, take this off the screen. Well, let's talk about what are the reasons given for this mitzvah of Shemitah, of observing the sabbatical year, letting the land rest, not working the land, not hoarding from the land, and not treating it as a regular year. Obviously, it's a very difficult year for those in agriculture, which we were an agricultural society for the most part on our years and centuries in the land of Israel throughout history. Even now, we have a tremendous amount of our economy is agriculture, but not nearly the percentage that it used to be. So that's basically, look, a couple of months here of this corona ordeal, and we're going into, God forbid, recession or worse. A year of nobody working. That was pretty serious. What's the purpose? What's the reason for the Torah imposing that upon us? The objectives of this mitzvah are multifold according to different commentators. The Rambam gives a very simple reason. The Rambam says for agricultural reasons. It actually helps you and helps the economy if you have foresight. Let the actual physical land, the dirt, rest, so to speak, unplowed. There's discussion about land that could be overworked and overdone, and it has eventually a lower yield of produce than normal. Give the land a break for a year, and it'll make it even healthier the next time. Almost similar to the idea of pruning a tree. You're cutting off the branch. Hey, you're less from its produce, seemingly. You're mutilating this tree. No, you're not. You're actually facilitating its future growth, and that's a similar agricultural idea with letting it rest. And the Rambam says the Torah does us a favor in that regard. Of course, there are many commentators that speak of the idea of bitachon, of the fact that undoubtedly this year of not working will cultivate our trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and give us an opportunity when we are forced to refrain from our means of sustenance, and this affects everyone in the economy, and basically just hands off and leave it to God. Pay my rent, buy my food and clothing, and sustain me. For a year, I wake up in the morning and I trust in you only, because I can't trust in the labor of my own hands this year. And that obviously gives us an opportunity to strengthen our trust, our bitachon, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu as our true and only sustainer. That's extended by some commentators like the Orach Hayim, and that this year also gives us a personal opportunity on a personal level to really foster our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and relate to him as we do in difficult times. But here's an entire year relating to Hashem in a closer way, where we're really feeling our connection because we're relying on him much more than we normally had to. However, the Ramban takes this mizvah to another level altogether in terms of the objective of its observance. Rabbeinu Bachya and others jump on board with the Ramban. And the Ramban says, not coincidentally, this is the 7th year. And this, you can say, is, we say in modern times, Shabbat on steroids. Because Shabbat, which is the one of our every 7 days, we're told in the Torah, is to remember to remember that God is creator. One day, refrain from everything and commemorate the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, refrained from his creation on this time period, in this 7th day. And therefore, we have in mind, and the primary objective of resting on Shabbat is, as we say in Kiddush, Zikaron Ma'aseh Bereshit, is to recall and remember that there is a single, primal, all-powerful creator, and that is God, our God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The primary objective of Shabbat, Yetziat Mitzrayim, helps us with that belief as well, that faith as well. That's in separate discussion. But that is Shabbat. Along comes Shemitah, and Shemitah basically is Shabbat exponentially. Is not just a day out of 7 days remembering a creator, but it's a whole year out of 7 years. And not only do we remember a creator on Shemitah year by acknowledging that this land is not mine. You're the landlord. This land is yours. Let me acknowledge that by refraining and not bothering to impose myself and to validate my ownership at all. And my right to at all control this land and to partake in this land for a whole year, because you're the owner, you're the creator, you're the originator of this land. But more than that, says the Ramban. And he recalls what Hachamim say the song, the Perek Tehillim that the Leviim sang on Shabbat in the Bet HaMikdash. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, which is Shabbat la'atid la'avo, for the future, which is a Yom Shikulo Shabbat, Nuha L'Chayei Ha'olamim, a day or a time period that will be a complete rest, so to speak, referring to perhaps the future redemption times of Mashiach, perhaps, and more probably, the Olam Haba, which is an eternal existence. Rabbeinu Bachya takes this to a further level, and he says the 7 cycles of Shemitah, the 7 worlds that were created, ending in the final 7th year, which is the eternal, we're going to eternal existence, the spiritual existence. Questions afterwards, please. And therefore, says the Ramban, that for this reason, the Shemitah year is treated so seriously And exile, the punishment of exile, severe suffering is attributed to it because one who denies and doesn't observe and violate the Shemitah year basically denies his faith and the truism of a creator of the world, the physical world, and the future metaphysical world in Olam Haba. All of God's creations are denied when one does not observe the sabbatical year. Very serious, says the Ramban, and that's why Parashat Behuqotai attributes our exile to the lack of observance of this year, because it's the lack of our faith in the first tenet of belief of Am Yisrael, and that is a single creator. I would like to extend the idea based on the Ramban and to try to bring home this idea of the severity of violation of Shemitah and the amount of faith that this really not only is supposed to instill in us, our nation, but the world. And I'll introduce it for a sec by saying, listen, we have a set of beliefs that we're obligated to believe in. The tenets of faith as mapped out and enumerated by the Rambam. Of course, the first one, that there is a God, and a list, go over the Rambam list is 13 tenets of faith. And the truth is that we struggle with them, we contemplate them, we philosophize, and we spend a lifetime trying to strengthen those modes of faith in our mind, in our belief system. But when it comes down to it, it's doable. It's really doable for your average Jew to be able to demonstrate this emunah and to feel this emunah and, to live a life with, observing these tenets of faith. It's attainable for your average, good, God-fearing Jew. However, the real depth of your faith, your commitment to these beliefs are put to the test in certain times, in environments of opposition and friction against these beliefs, in times where you're pushed to the limit and you're tested whether or not you'll hold on to these faiths and beliefs. Will you demonstrate your emunah during those times? When your sustenance and your survival are at risk, will you maintain that very same faith in the single, primal, all-controlling creator and the just God, which is our God? Shemitah is that environment. Shemitah year is that challenge. That's where our faith is put to the test, because we're at risk. And you can say that now is not the small individual test of faith in God, but it's the large scale emunah test for Am Yisrael. Because if we were to observe this is not just a day of the week for a single person. This involves the entire land. This extends over the course of an entire year. It involves an entire nation. And really, the fortitude of our faith is being placed on the international stage, because there we are, the chosen nation, in front of the entire world on a world stage, and we're being looked at. Will we now testify over the course of this year that there is a creator, and we refrain and we believe so much in this creator that we're going to exhibit it by putting our whole sustenance at risk? That's how deep, that's how substantive our faith is in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And our commitment to monotheism is going to be put to the test in view of the entire world. That's how critical Shemitah observance is, and that's how the grand opportunity that Am Yisrael has to observe Shemitah. When we forsake Shemitah, we're not just observing a handful of negative commandments and a positive commandment. we really are making public in the worst way our lack of faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is a grand scale, exponential Hilul Hashem. The flip side of observing Shemitah is possibly the greatest Hilul Hashem that we can perpetrate as a nation. Because it's over the course of a year, we announce to the world, Has v'Shalom, that we are not really committed the way we always say we are. And we're really not the nation of God, God forbid, the way we claim to be. That is why, in my view, in the extension of the Ramban's presentation, that the Shemitah violation and lack of observance is so extreme and so severe that the Torah attributes exile, and therefore, by extension, our suffering throughout history to the lack of observance of Shemitah, because on a grand scale, we committed a terrible Hilul Hashem, and we forsake our opportunity to be able to instead to commit and demonstrate the highest level and the most public Kiddush Hashem possible by showing the world that indeed we are the nation that introduced monotheism, and we're in the nation that is committed to the belief in a single primal creator, and so much so that we're the nation that's willing to put at risk and to put on the line our sustenance, our means of support and sustaining ourselves for the entire year, just to make that point and bring that point home. That's why we observe Shemitah. That's why it's so severe not to. And that's the opportunity that Be'ezrat Hashem we will have, not so far in the distant, in the near future, in our actual Eretz Yisrael that we're in control of now, and to show the world our true belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I will now take questions.